Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Hope you're doing well. So, I wanted to read another excerpt of the Roman Miscellany book, which has a lot of different randomized stories about ancient Rome and everything concerning it. And this one was about Caesar, Gaius Julius Caesar, who's one of my favorite figures in history, and I wanted to share it with you. Let's begin. Bismillah. It's called The Ruthless Charmer. Caesar was a charmer, witty, fashionably dressed, cultivated, a generous friend. He was also an enthusiastic lover with a special eye for the wives of his political rivals. But if you got in his way, he was ruthless. He rose to power on a hecatomb of corpses and ruined lives. That said, Caesar was not naturally cruel. Once he had crushed his opponents, he was happy to be magnanimous. Now, on that last sentence, you can clearly see that in a way because he decimated Vercingetorix in Gaul, right? It was said that he paraded him nude, right? Eventually decapitated him. But then, with his rivals, Brutus, he forgave them, and look what happened to him. So, he does have the ability to pardon, but also to not. I think, like us all, right? Having completed his work in Gaul, he wanted to pass immediately from his governorship to a second consulship in 49 BC. So 49 BC is a long time ago, friends. So a consulship and then governorship. If there was an interval of unemployment, he would lose his immunity from persecution as a public official, and his enemies would be able to bring criminal charges against him for some of his actions when consul in 59 BC. And that would be the end of his political career, perhaps even his life. So this seems to be a key thing in who Caesar was as a person, because to stay in office was a liability shield, was protective, right? When Caesar saw that he would not get his wish, he invaded Italy at the head of his legions. So, invaded, right? Crossed the Rubicon. There's the car, the Rubicon. Pompey and many senators abandoned Italy for Greece. So, this must have been a sight, right? No one expected Caesar to come in with his legions steadily marching. And then to see all those senators just in a tizzy leaving their properties, right? Imagine it. People packing up their carts, going. People are like, what's Caesar gonna do? Is he gonna act like Sulla? Right? Is he gonna, what's gonna happen here? It's scary. A lot of unknowns. Remember, Rome was not shy from violence. Pompey and many senators abandoned Italy for Greece, where Caesar won an apparently decisive victory at Pharsalus. Pompey, outgeneraled, fled to the field, but he was assassinated in Egypt. So, Caesar had a great battle there, and Pompey lost. So he's trying to escape, and then he fled to Egypt, where the authorities wanted to curry favor with the victor. A disgusted Caesar had those responsible put to death. It was not for foreigners to punish his enemies. So very famous, right? Think about that. Pompey was literally his brother-in-law. Just how painful that the man you allowed to marry your daughter then joined your enemies. You beat him in a battle, right? And then the Egyptians kill him, and now you want those who killed your enemy to be put to death. But think about the honor code. What a chaotic story. Really just crazy. His daughter died trying to give Pompey an heir in childbirth. Horrible way to go, right? To lose a grandchild and your daughter. Whew. And then the man who you were going to embrace as your son-in-law now becomes your enemy. But this just shows that Caesar has that honor code, right? Now the Egyptians were like, we're trying to help you out. What are you mad for? Think about it. Despite Pharsalus, hostilities continued with resistance in North Africa and Spain. But once, I think Cato was in North Africa, right? But once he had won the war in 45 BC, Caesar was liberal with pardons. He wanted the support of his senatorial opponents and welcomed them back into public life in Rome. This policy of clemency and reconciliation failed, but it was not through want of effort on Caesar's part. The one thing for which people could not forgive him was his forgiving them. Now, very potent to look at, right? This is why the pacifist philosophy, to me, you gotta be careful. You know? Oh, forgive, forgive, forgive. Yes, you can try. But these people fled Rome, abandoned their properties, which takes like a lot of effort, right? And in their head, all they can think about is, if we destroy Caesar the threat, everything will be better, and we can have our properties back. And Cicero, Cato, a lot of them, they fled, and then later decided to switch, right? It's just a bit of chaos, but Caesar still pardoned them, gave them clemency, let them still be in public life. It's like a massive lesson for like over 1,000 years that you must be careful with who you pardon. You must be careful. There's so many interesting cases, right? And what did they do to him? They literally, shanked him on the Senate floor. There was no reconciliation. The hostile nature was still there. It just blows my mind no matter how many times I think about it. What would it have been like to be a fly on the wall as Caesar is in the late nights by candlelight, thinking to himself, this mighty conqueror who's seen so many soldiers perish and heard the cries of the battlefield, and thinks, let me be generous, let me forgive, let me allow them, let's make peace, let's get back to work, right? And those other people are plotting. It's crazy. It's crazy, man. They wanted to persecute him. He goes into Italy, punishes those who took out Pompey. See, those people, even when they saw, I think they say Cato took his own life, like the soldierly way or whatever, with a sword. When Caesar's soldiers were in his area, if I recall. But these others saw, like, Caesar didn't want Pompey to be disgraced in such a way, right? He held up the Romans' honor, even though it could have cost him the allyship of Egypt, which they got grain from, which they need the Ptolemies, obviously, to be in the fold. And yet, he didn't want the foreigners to carry out acts against Romans, putting the Roman high up. But again, the senators also know, the history of Rome. Sulla, they know all these ones. The Brachus brothers, that's just the way it goes, right? No one wants their head on a pike. And to dance around the hungry lion is quite difficult. But in the end, it became the infamous story told for generations upon generations. Let me know what you think. It's a lot to think about, so it's intense. It never gets old to talk about it. If you'd like to join my blog and support the channel, it's www.subscribestar.com/MilahanArchive. Hope to see you there.